Let's go over to question 19 now. Here we have a right triangle. We know it's a right triangle because it's got the right triangle trigonometry on it, the cosine. So let's just say this is angle K. And so we're dealing with the cosine of K. J is the right angle, and so this must be L. Now, when you're in a trigonometric situation like this, the first thing you should do if we're dealing with angle K, and we are, is go straight out of there and call that the opposite. Then you have the hypotenuse of a right triangle. And the one you haven't labeled yet is called the adjacent. Now, of course, we're talking about SOHCAHTOA, which most students have heard of already. It's the idea that the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and the tan is the opposite over the adjacent. So cosine K is 24 over 51. That means that the adjacent can be 24, and the hypotenuse can be 51. Technically, they're just in a ratio of 24 to 51, but most of the time, you can get away with putting the actual numbers there. Now, if we want the cosine of L, we're probably going to need the length of LJ. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find that missing side length. With Pythagorean, the biggest way to mess up is by not putting the hypotenuse in as C. So we have 24 squared plus B squared equals 51 squared. 24 squared is 576. 51 squared is 2,601. Take away 576 from both sides, and you have 2,025. And now take the square root of both sides, and B is 45. So our missing side length is 45. And now we're going from centering everything on K to now centering everything on L. So the safest way to do this is to draw a new triangle. And so I'm just copying the old one myself, finding a place to put it. I'll put it over here. And we're not centered on K anymore. Now we're centered on L. That means that this is now the opposite. So I'm going to erase the word adjacent and the word opposite. Going opposite L, that's our opposite. And this becomes the adjacent. So as you go from centering your trig on one angle to centering it on another, what happens is the opposite and adjacent sides trade places. So now, if we're looking for the cosine of L, that's cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's the CAH of the cosine. And the adjacent is 45. And the hypotenuse is 51. Simplifying that, you have 15 over 17. And that is the cosine of L. So that's the answer to our question.